Allow me to also express my gratitude to the NCA for inviting planners to this occasion. And it is indeed timely that the discussion on the building code has to be done at the Devolution conference. It is not lost on us that the original building code, the 1968, of course not the original one, but the second building code that we had, the 1968 one, as President Engineer Sharma has mentioned, in 1968 only the cover page of what was there in 1948 was changed, and we accepted it. So it's a fantastic occasion to talk about it, and the architect and the engineer have talked about the technical aspects of the building code. I would like to bring my perspective a little bit on the planning component of the building code.
Absolutely.
Which I am sad to mention hasn't been properly accommodated in the demystification of the building code. I listened very keenly to the chair of NCA. I listened very keenly to the PS. And they acknowledge all professions, all facets where the building code implementation is to be done, and they very ably acknowledge that the application of the building code begins, of course, in the counties with the approval of the building plans. But they fall short of mentioning that the people who approve those applications in counties are planners. And sadly, the popularization of the building code has, in a very big way, of course, left planners out of this discussion, sadly, Madam Chair. And I am happy that planners were involved in the preparation of the building code. But with regards to its application, today, if I would probably ask how many planners are here in the room, I would probably find one or two. Yes? This room should be filled with planners as we speak, because the building code is not only a technical document that is applied or that's applicable to the architects, contractors, and engineers, but it ideally ought to be the Bible of the planner who approves buildings at the county levels. Of course, we acknowledge the role of the engineers and architects in the approval of drawings, but it is to be appreciated that each building in a city, each piece of infrastructure, each component of the building, of the built environment, has the power to complement the next one, or the power to literally destroy the value of the next one. So if you had, for instance, I do not know which is the most modern building in the city of Nairobi right now, but you had it in the middle of Kibera, the value of this most fantastic building and the value of, and here I'm talking about the aesthetic value, the stability and things like this, that value would be in a way delimited by its surroundings. And so this is where planning comes in, because planning is that science which tells the architect that fantastic, you have designed a fantastic building right here, but this fantastic building has to be surrounded by fantastic infrastructure in this nature and shape, which is to be, surrounded by the next building, which ideally looks in this manner. So then, when you talk from the macro context of one single building to the streetscape, to the neighborhood, to the city level, there's got to be that appreciation of complementarity between different types of buildings. And this is where ideally planning comes in. And this is where we are here to contribute our voices in sensitization of the building code. Ideally, actually, yesterday I requested Shakira for a copy of the building code. Of course, I have the soft copy. I thought we would find the printed ones. NCA would probably need to print the hard copy building code, old-fashioned style, to give to each planner to carry as a Bible. I believe that would, of course, capture, perhaps imprint this in our psyche and in our collective conscience much more than having it in soft copy, and it being something that, the planners will be asking, should I not apply? Something like that. But I appreciate this conversation, and this is the right place to have it.
Thank you. And absolutely. Indeed, the new building code should be all-inclusive, and steps are being made to ensure that it is properly popularized so that it reaches even to the worker on site. The worker on site should be ideally knowing what the building code is. Thank you, planner. We take note of your concerns and the contributions. Madam Rose Kananu, you've heard what the engineers and consultants have mentioned. What is your take as the Kenya Property Developers Association? How is this Kenya Building Code 2024 affecting you?
Yeah, allow me to take a step back and first start by congratulating the NCA team, the chair, ED, and their team for the work they've done in the last 1 year in terms of sensitization. I've watched Idea Catch go across the country. And why is this important? I see the revamped building code as something that is at the heart of, it's enshrined the Constitution about having access to safe, inclusive, sustainable environment that gives people dignity. And therefore, the code should not be seen as a compliance issue, but something that all of us should embrace, because the earth and the environment we are given, we hold it just in custody for future generations. So when we look at what is happening in our country and globally, there are huge changes. The rate at which urbanization is happening and the population growth at the moment is unsustainable. We haven't caught up. We in the built environment haven't caught up. Nairobi, representing the counties here, is a case in point. The flooding, the waste management or the lack of. We have developers willy-nilly putting up their structure without considering the infrastructure. So from a perspective of the developer, this is, I would say it's a guiding principle that every developer should hold very dear and not delegate the responsibility of owning the code to our consultants. Because yes, they're the ones who go to the county offices to seek permitting for us. Quite a number of developers go into their job from a commercial point of view, profit-taking point of view. But unless we think sustainably, even that profit will not be sustainable. So this building code is, it's a great code because one, the way it pulls together all the other acts, the Environmental Act, the Planning Act, all collapse into one document that would sensitize any developer to start thinking about what is this structure that I'm putting out into the environment? Is it safe? Am I using building materials that are climate resilient? Am I following the standards that have been set aside? Because at the end of the day, when we do our work, we are giving these structures for people to live in, and therefore they have to be safe. They have to be given the dignity. And so that's really the stance I look at. Any developer vis-a-vis this code should be thinking about all the standards that have been put in the code right from the beginning. Right from planning, they should be thinking about how can I ensure this building is safe? How can I ensure that I'm using building materials that are sustainable? How can I ensure that even as I adopt the code, I don't make housing inaccessible and unaffordable? So this is a document even representing KPDA and our developers that I would take in and look at how we can increase the sensitization to make sure that we are also supporting NCA in awareness. As KPDA, we run a lot of capacity building programs, and I believe, Chair, that we need to have a conversation around how do we collaborate to do more of the sensitization you're already doing. You don't have to do it alone. KPDA runs several events throughout the year, and we can take up the building code as one of our mandate. So allow me to stop there. I could go on and on.
Absolutely.
But I'll just stop there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Madam Kananu. Professor Mike, you've heard what your colleagues have said with regard to the new building code. We want to know, as the CC of Fiscal Planning Vihiga County, how is your county integrating the new building code into the development plans? And perhaps you can paint a picture for us. What are the challenges you are facing, given what Plan of Auseta has also mentioned, that you are the people down there who approve this? So how has this been integrated at your county level?
Thank you, Chair. I think the code is very important because it is giving us the outlines, the processes on how we should control our building developments in our counties. And therefore, I find it very important in this case to supplement what the engineers are doing, and as a county to ensure that the right things are being done. And therefore, from what the engineers have said and the planners and the project manager, promoters, I would basically say our role as counties is basically to enforce and ensure that the constructors get timely the buildings approved. And as you know, the counties vary about their needs in their various areas. So it is very important that the county's role is significant in ensuring that the policies of this national code are really followed. Because basically it will improve the development and controls of the buildings within given counties. Some of the challenges we are receiving is that maybe the counties at the moment, they may not be having adequate PQs, adequate planners or architects who could approve very fast the plans, the enormous or many plans that come to the counties at a given day that requires approval. But nevertheless, the counties are trying as much as possible to ensure that the approvals are done within the time limits, and therefore the constructors can be on the side to do their works without any fail. And therefore, I'm saying that we at the counties, we appreciate the Code 2024 because it is promoting and giving us the directions on what we are expected to do at the counties in this county, in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that viewpoint. We really appreciate your role from the county government to ensure that indeed the new building code is devolved and implemented as such. The challenges you've mentioned, I think, will be taken up and addressed as such. Thank you for that brief introduction across the board. I want now to move to a more detailed discussion. Given that you are the leaders from the various institutions where you are coming from, all right, I would like to know what you are doing at your institutions, at least to embrace the new building code and how it has changed the way things are being done. Let me begin with the architect. You add, Madam Chair of the board, indicate very clearly that the new building code has indeed introduced alternative materials, considered many things in this design. In your institution, the Architectural Association of Kenya, are there any design trends that have now emerged given the new building code? And what are some of the innovations, perhaps materials, which you've considered as an institution to better embrace the new building code? And how can we ensure that there is social inclusivity, even as we implement this at various counties? Give us your talk about the role of the Architectural Association of Kenya in this discussion.
Thank you, and once again. So let me first start by saying that the building code has caught up with the changes. So maybe it is early days to say that the building code has influenced the new technologies. I would like to say that the industry had already moved on. It had taken a long time for the building code to be updated. And for a lot of reasons, of course, financial, innovation, new materials coming in, adoption for purposes of, fast-tracking the processes of building. The new materials had already been adopted, and a lot of them were not recognized by the code because the code was looking at the traditional methods and systems of construction with very little wiggle room to accommodate new ideas. And I think the building code now aligns. And I think it's important that this building code has been embedded in it and a 5-year cycle of renewal or updates, which would be a very important piece of it to be able to adopt to the very fast changing. And when I'm talking about fast in construction terms, it's not your usual 1 year, 2 years, because materials take long from the moment in which they are brought in by private entities or educational entities from theory, and then taken through the rigor of testing, and then there's the mass adoption, and in which case in our country, it's mostly from a financial point of view, whether it's economical, whether it's cheap, whether it's easy to use by the artisans, who most of them are not trained. So after every 5 years, I'm expecting that maybe the next cycle, which is in about 5 years' time, which will even include all the recognition of all the unregulated professionals, for example, which is part of what has been promised. This would be able to help. There would be an indicator on whether the building code is ahead of its time or behind. And in this case, I would like to say right now as we speak, it is behind and it's catching up. So it has adopted what is already being used. Now, in terms of inclusion, and for me, when we talk about inclusion, we are also talking about the issues of who's making the decisions. Because if you devolve decision making to the lowest level, if today we went and found out that all kiosks are being built with gum poles and mabati, and that becomes the default building material, through the way in which it's being used by the various, your street market vendors, your mamambogas and all that. So if the building code finds a way of putting that as part and parcel of its standards, then we'll start talking about the issues of inclusion. The other one we'll be looking at in terms of inclusion is that are the people who are implementing this project, and most of them are not trained. I mean, from statistics from NCA, NBI, 75% of all our artisans learn on the job. They don't go to school. They shadow someone on a site and they become experts. A few years, they get money and they become big contractors. If we start thinking about these are the people who are building this country, are they involved in the decisions that we are making? Are they part and parcel of this implementation process? And as much as we are talking here as professionals and that what we are doing and how far have we gone with innovation, and are we catching up, or are the court catching up? I would put it to us that if we do not have that level, the kind of people who are building this country, I know the informal ones, the ones who are self-trained, and then we also have the TVETs, who are the technologists, the ones who are actually on the ground. Then we will now start talking about inclusion at the level of, we are not going to ask them to comply. We're not going to ask them what the building code says. They know exactly what the building code says. So, in closing, how does the building code, and planner here talked about hard copy for him, with planners walking around, it's perfect.
Yes.
How do you put the building code in the hands of a fundi who's a mason in Homa Bay? Okay, so that when he's doing the height and he knows minimum height is 2.4, he's not doing it because other fundis have been doing it, but because the building code says. And I think these are some of the things that we'll say. If we go that level, then scaling that up becomes easier. But if we come where Engineer Sharma is the one coming to tell the fundi, do you know that the building code says that your opening should be this size? Then that will become a problem. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Engineer, how is the engineering community now embracing this code? Are there any changes so far? What can we expect from there in support of the new building code?
Before I come to that question, I wanted to point out a few things. Number one,
yes,
very early on, when you were working on the building code, we went to great length to differentiate between the building control and development control.
okay,
So that then, development control falls under Physical Planning and Land Use Act, and the building control then falls under the building code. The other thing, and this came from the professor, was the question of counties in enforcement and getting timely building approvals. I think there's a problem there if the focus for building approvals is just timeliness of the approval. I think we need to make sure that the approvals that we grant, they are actually getting approved because they meet a certain standard that is set by the building code, and they meet the requirements of Physical and Land Use Planning Act. But if then our focus is just timeliness in approval, then we may find ourselves approving for the sake of approving and getting revenue, but not using the process to add value to what's supposed to be. And of course, another interesting animal called lack of staff, which squarely falls on the county administrations. It confuses me that no governor wants to move around and do anything, because if he says and does anything and falls a fall of the law, he'll get into problems. So they'll make sure that they have a councils around themselves and they'll employ them. Obviously, if they want to run hospitals, they'll make sure they have the healthcare professionals. But you want to run a department that is overseeing building approvals, and you don't have a planner, you don't have an engineer, you don't have an architect. This is an administrative decision that counties must make. And so they just have to implement it, in my view. But now, of course, coming to your question, I must be honest and say I'm quite disappointed. Building code is a process we have done for some time. But in 2012, through Gazette Notice number 13048, we legislated into effect and gazetted the standards that are supposed to apply for structural design.
Okay.
And these are called Eurocodes. As recent as last week, I was reviewing a design done from the State Department of Public Works, where the building code is actually being, sensitized
considered.
through and stuff like that.
Yes.
And the structural designs I was reviewing, they do not comply to Eurocodes. And this is a government agency. The engineers there, they are supposed to be well versed with what NCA is doing. That was my disappointment. And I asked myself, what else can we do?
Yeah.
As the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, we have strenuously carried out capacity building initiatives through Engineering Education Committee that we have. We have had sensitization webinars with the National Construction Authority. We have had webinars look into collapse of buildings and, document lessons learned through National Building Inspectorate. We have almost taken a position when every other time there has been a building collapse. Yet we can see staff in the State Department not complying with some of these standards that are set out. So I think we just need to start clobbering people in the sense that you submit a drawing, you submit a design for approval, it is rejected from the counties. It doesn't meet the current design standards. How then do you give me a drawing that says T8, that says D16?
Yes.
It doesn't work. The building code that is in force talks about H16, high yield bus, yield strength 500, not 460, as used to be under BS and stuff like that. So I just think we just need to have now start working with a big stick. If you submit something like that does not meet standard, it is thrown back to you to go and design with the current standards. But as an institution, we continue to sensitize our members. We continue to let them know that these are the applicable standards. And we are very grateful for the partnership with the National Construction Authority because we are part of the process of development of the building code. And I know there are other initiatives that we are doing together. However, there needs to now to be a form of a stick of telling people this is actually the law, because the building code is a subsidiary legislation under the National Construction Authority, and we cannot ignore it any further.
Thank you. Thank you for that impressive input. Planner, you've heard what the engineers are doing quite clearly to integrate the new building code into their designs and also doing sensitization among their members. What is your take as the president of the Institute of Planners?
I would say that the most immediate answer to your question is no. And I would be tempted to leave it right there. But that would be unfair to the ongoing discourse.
Yes.
And I will probably just put it this way, that as planners, we look at the code not as a document to be applied at a micro level, but we look at a code in its broadest sense. It is like this. You look at the building code and you look at the technical standards, you look at the sustainability standards and how it brings in climate resilience and all this at the site level.
Okay.
But for the planning practitioner, our view is a lot broader than that. And so we ask ourselves, how can planners come in, or how should planners come in? And this goes back to the initial call to action that I made, that planners need to be involved in the sensitization that is going on, and they have themselves to also be sensitized on how to align the building code with some of the other planning instruments, such as the Planner's Handbook, such as the urban plans, urban renewal plans, slum upgrading plans, county spatial plans, and all these other instruments at the neighborhood level, streetscape level, all the way to the county level, so that the application of the code is looked at more, not, of course, by the fundis and the architect at the site, but for those of us who are looking at the image of the city for the next 10, 20, 50 years. The departure is this.
Yeah.
The planner is concerned with issues of variety of buildings. So how are we to obtain this aspect of variety in any urban context? We can only do this by ensuring that the applicability of the scope of material use, technology use by the different, for instance, ethnic communities that we have. You'd look at, for instance, the Maasai. They had the typical Maasai Manyata, which has been their mainstay for the past several centuries. The Swahili architecture, quite famous in the coastal regions. But now, how is it possible that we are able to capture the Maasai typology, Kikuyu typology, Luo typology, and perhaps the architects would be well driven to perhaps develop prototypes for each of the ethnic vernacular typologies for purposes of variety. And this, I believe, the code provides that space. This would enable, in urban design terms, issues such as the legibility of the city or the legibility of the urban ecosystem. This has not happened. Okay. And that's my biggest regret, because it's a very powerful document. That's why I'm saying it should be printed in the old-fashioned hardcore Bible version kind of thing for all the professions working here. And perhaps also taken down to the very fundis. Architect George will confirm he is a good Christian. He knows that everybody, including the oldest member of his village church, have Bibles. Don't we all? So I wonder what would be difficult in ensuring that we also, those of us involved in construction and urban development, also have these Bibles, so that we refer to it every now and then. If you're taken to task, you are taken to page so and so, and you are put to ask on the specific aspects of application. I think that's doable, but unfortunately it hasn't been done.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Planner. Let me get what Madam Kananu is talking about, the response of the private developers with regards to the new building code, even as we also invite members of the plenary. We are coming back to you shortly. If you have questions, prepare them. We will take about 10 minutes.
Let me answer that question from the mandate of KPDA, or our reason for existing. Being the umbrella body that brings the developers and their serving ecosystem, KPDA exists to create a conducive business environment that will allow the actors to thrive. We are also in existence to drive policy advocacy, and as well as creating sustainable building solutions. And the way we do it in 4 ways. We have the policy and advocacy outreach to ensure that regulations are creating that enabling environment, not just for the developers, but even for government, for the counties. Because at the end of the day, when all the work, the good work that's done by the consultants and the counties, it is the developers that take ownership of the finished product. So policy advocacy is one of the ways. Then there's education. There's a strong arm in capacity building. So look at the building code. It's brought, as Engineer Kitame said, it's a very forward-thinking, internationally responsive code. And the education arm is important to make sure that the developers and the people that work under the KPDA umbrella are up to speed with the new technologies, new ways of doing things. So we also do research, and I see a very big aspect here in terms of leveraging the research capabilities to look at the different aspects that have been brought out in the new building code. When we talk of safety in building, what does that really mean? I'll give an example. We have a new member who's come in. He's from India. India has a lot of high-rise buildings, and so lifts is a big thing. And he found out that we don't have a lift standard, and we all asked each other, so the people who are providing lifts to building, what are they responsive to? And he found that one of them was using a standard that had been outdated 10 years ago globally. So there's need to do research on some of these things that are being mentioned so that we are not just floating around, cliche, but we truly embrace what is climate resilience. What are we talking about when we're talking about green financing? So research is another area. So these things KPDA is doing at the end of the day is to promote ethical standards. And I know the building code, when applied in terms of those approvals that engineer is talking about, and our counties are the ones that are approving, is the plan we put out to be developed, is it going to promote ethical standards in the environment? So some of the things KPDA has done, and I'll just mention, the key ones. We've taken an initiative from the Secretariat to build relations with the county governments, with the NCA itself. We have an MOU with the NCA to collaborate and do certain things together. We've got NEMA, DOSH, and I see the building code being the foundation from which the conversations should flow from, so that we ensure that what we are delivering as a service to developers is compliant. Another area that we've now started taking seriously, for those who follow the news in the environment, you have seen residential associations starting to push back. And we are aware that we have rogue developers who are doing things they shouldn't be doing. So KPDA has not looked at the residential associations as enemies. We've started engaging with them, and in fact, in our upcoming conference, there will be a session that's dedicated to those conversations, because the residential associations are representing the consumers of what the property developers are putting up. And by working together, we will create dignity, we will put out good quality products. And lastly, I want to talk about the innovation. I think the greatest advantage that the new building code has brought is that there's openness to innovation. So developers have the financial capacity and the capability to start looking at modularized construction, as an example, looking at new materials that have not been used in the country before and bringing them in. Why? Because we're looking for the climate resilience, we're looking at affordability, we're looking at accessibility. So KPDA is continuing to grow. I must say, the awareness at our developer level is not where it should be. And being a small association with limited resources, we may not have reach. But when we collaborate with NCA, when we collaborate with the counties, we amplify our voice, and the building code will come to life because of our efforts.
Thank you so much for that enlightenment. In 30 seconds each of us, what is the way forward? The PS mentioned about collaboration with stakeholders to try and integrate this new building code to our various institutions and the built environment. What is your recommended way forward, especially with regards monetary, especially regards with how we can actually move this forward in terms of sensitization and implementation? So what is your way forward? In about 30 seconds, I can begin with Professor Mike.
Yes, as I said earlier, at the counties, we therefore need maybe to move so that we ensure that these compliances of structural safety standards are withstanding the natural disasters and any other calamities. So We have a duty at the counties to do that. Secondly, we have to do work with other agencies to ensure that the right things are being implemented at the counties, so that proper controls are realized at the counties or in the building, as the Code 2024 outlines. We also look at the planning, the infrastructures in our counties,
Okay.
so that we support even the climate adaptation of the buildings and any others. And then also monitoring and inspection. We ensure that there is regular and inspection that takes place to ensure that our buildings are taking the right shapes at all times.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. And we look forward. Planner, what is your way forward for us?
Thank you. I first of all wish to invite the NCA to the annual Planners Convention, which will happen in November. Yes, we have written, I believe, and we'll follow up with our secretariat to ensure that NCA gets a moment to come and speak to planners. I believe it's very important, and this will go a long way. But also, in doing that, it's important that very specific campaigns are done to embed the building code in the various types of plans that we have that are currently being prepared across the country. Urban plans, infrastructure plans, ecosystems management plans, urban renewal plans, slum upgrading plans, etc. All this should have specific sections dedicated on how the building code is to be achieved or is to be applied towards ensuring that the elements, because people, including developers, professionals, architects, engineers, all these refer to the specific plans that have been prepared for the specific areas, so that if the code will be mentioned as many times as possible in as many plans as possible, then of course it gets imprinted into our collective minds, and the application or enforcement then becomes easy. Thank you. And of course, such conversations should be held a lot more frequently to enable us to ventilate, perhaps also to give a chance to professionals also to give their views, because many of them perhaps are not even aware on how they can specifically apply the code, yet it's in their direct line of day-to-day activity. Thank you.
Thank you. My final comments in terms of this discussion today will be for us to be able to fast track this ideal of demystifying or making it ubiquitous, the building code, we need to look at the performance aspects of the building code, because our building code is mostly prescriptive on what needs to be done. There are certain aspects of what we are trying to achieve. What is the scope? What is the purpose of the building code in terms of green building, in terms of healthy homes, in terms of structural stability? If we put that in place and have it as the other version, another version of a popular version of the building code, it will be able to resonate very well with the community. Finally, I would like also to say that AAK has several initiatives that align very well with the building code, and together with NCA, we are crafting a way in which we can sensitize not just our members but the public. And we've developed, for example, a checklist for healthy homes. Okay. And we think, aligned with the NCA, with the building code, we will be able to sensitize. We have also developed a green building index for Kenya, which is specific for our situations, and an infrastructure framework for inclusive, integrated and inclusive infrastructure framework. These are various initiatives that, aligned with the building code, can speak very well to the issues of performance. What are we trying to achieve with the building code? We don't have to go to detail, But if people understand what we're trying to target, then they will be able to absorb it easily.
In one word, it's ownership.
Okay.
And what do I mean by that? For some time now, I think the building code is being seen as an NCA thing. It's time for everybody now to take ownership. I think NCA has midwifed the process and they've carried the baby. It's time for everybody to now own the baby and make it our Bible, so that as we do our work, as we deliver service, we need to always reference the building code because we've owned it. Yes, NCA and the counties will be the enforcers, but it should not be seen as a policing. It really should be seen more from just checking compliance, providing capacity building.
Thank you so much, and we look forward. Engineer?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we need to look at the building code from upstream, midstream, and downstream, in the sense that it's a tool relevant at any stage. At the conceptualization, design, maintenance, but at the end of life, demolitioning. And even before demolition, the execution is there. That is a construction stage, and then the maintenance. Let this go to the lecture halls.
Okay.
So that our students are exposed to the building code right there. Let us make it difficult for you to submit a development that does not meet the standards set out in the building code. You see, it is a law, and we have to comply, so that then we don't then leave the room an option to continue doing infrastructure, buildings that are not good for people. And for us as professionals, our undertaking is to comply, to lead into compliance. It is more, non-compliance is always more expensive than compliance. It is more difficult, more expensive, and more costly to the developer if you do not design and build compliance into your building.
Absolutely, absolutely. We totally agree and concur with those sentiments. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a very enlightening discussion this afternoon in line with the theme of this year's Devolution Conference. I want now to bring this discussion to the plenary, but in the interest of time, we want to pick only 2 questions. I see we have 3 questions. We have 3 hands, 4 hands. Where are the ladies? Inclusivity. We've discussed about inclusivity.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Peter Kimani Gitau, and I'm the chairman of the municipality of Naivasha. Very happy to attend this event this afternoon. My question is, in line with the sustainable infrastructure and urban resilience, Naivasha, in the town that I come from, Naivasha, we're trying to build a resort city, which we want to achieve in the next few years. And in line with that, we have so much construction that is ongoing in Naivasha. But in the building code, I would like to ask, do we have anything that talks about public open spaces? Because what seems to be happening is that we're building hundreds and hundreds of houses and apartments in Naivasha, and the people who are going to live in these apartments do not have a place to go and play or enjoy the weekend or something like that. And it seems like when a developer comes to Naivasha and they buy a land, 100 acres, and split it up, there's no obligation for them to put any green space there.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Michael Nyangango. I have at least around 3 questions, and it's addressed to our president, IEK. I just wanted to ask him the following questions. One, with regard to the loadings in BS 6399. What has changed for the Eurocode in terms of those loadings? Then another question is that between the designs used in Eurocode and the one used for British standard, which one is more economical in terms of steel areas? The other question is now in terms of you remember the spreadsheet, the RCC spreadsheet, which we use for design,
Yes.
was based on BS standards. Do we have one which has been developed for the Eurocode? Thank you.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important. Engineer, I think you will have to start with the third one. Third question.
Thank you very much. My name is Damaris Mukala. I am not an engineer or a planner. I'm a lawyer by profession. I represent the Kenya Law Reform Commission. I do not have a question, but I have a comment reacting to the observation that engineer, or rather architect George, and I think even Ms. Kananu had raised it, on the ownership or the perceived ownership of the court and the role of the authority, the NCA, in implementing the code. So this is an issue that we have also identified because the Law Reform Commission is also represented in the multi-sectoral committee that is seeking to review the NCA Act. So one of the key areas for reform, one is to find a way of anchoring the code in the Act in a more substantive manner, so that even for the reader, they are able to see where we are coming from with the code and what value the code brings into the industry. And also then now better anchoring the role of the NCA when it comes to implementation, so that it doesn't appear to be, more supervisory, but maybe to ensure that it's properly implemented by, oversight. So I thought that is important for me to mention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council, for those good words. Indeed, we are much privileged. Yes, Madam?
So good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Yes, my name is Betty Njoku, and I have a few comments and just a few questions. One is on use of technology. Kenya is changing, technology is changing, how technology is used in your broad field. And I've also had a feeling that all these organizations which are represented here are not communicating. Because if a whole architect can send a plan, a whole government can send a plan to an architect for approval, and they've not followed the proper standards. So I feel there's a bit of miscommunication. So there should be interoperability between these bodies. Yes, mpendane kidogo, you share information kidogo, and everything will be okay. And also on issues of training, in our universities, I feel that our training is still backdated. Okay. So you need to include the building codes in our curriculum. It should be like what the planner had said, the Bible of laying the foundation for all our trainings. And also there is issue of public awareness. Maybe you can start using the vernacular radio stations, because now they're everywhere. And at least the common mwananchi can know. Hata huyu fundi akikuja kunitengenezea hii nyumba, amefuata hii. Make it as simple as possible. Because once you make it so complicated, and we know maybe architects ni wale wamesoma, urban planners ni wale watu wamesoma, so people tend to... And housing is for everyone. Buildings are for everyone. So thank you very much. And I've also learned a lot. Keep it up. Yes, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Inclusivity is very important. Inclusivity. Then I had the last question, which has come from the plenary, and is going to the CEC Vihiga County. In support of the current call on having professionals in counter approvals, how will you speak to the status of Vihiga County on this item?
Thank you. That's a very important question by the Naivasha Municipality Manager. And it ties with, I think, the first or second comment that I made, that there is a need to integrate specific aspects of the building code into other instruments for the management and development of our cities and towns. Now, the building code, to the best of my knowledge, only captures at a very high level how buildings need to integrate with open spaces, but it does not give any specific standards. And ideally, it should not give any specific standards for open spaces, because then again, that takes us into the realms of ecosystem services. It also takes us into the realms of planning standards. So the standards for open spaces are provided for in the physical planning handbook. So it's important that the municipal manager familiarizes with the physical planning handbook, but also it appears that the development of Naivasha is catching the powers that be by surprise, but it should not, because Naivasha, as it is right now, is probably going to be our 5th city. That is, if it will not have formed one single conurbation with Nakuru and Nairobi. For that to happen, different levels of plans are required for Naivasha, which should specifically provide for green spaces. The urban plan for Naivasha, distinct zoning plans for distinct areas for Naivasha, which should provide for all these open spaces. And the planning standards are quite clear that for every development, open spaces should account for not at least 5%.
5%.
You know, and that excludes open spaces on the road reserves, on the waylifts, which provide amenities such as the ones that he sees on Thika Road. So please familiarize yourself with that, and also ensure that Naivasha prepares the plan. There's one more that I would wish to take, the comment by Planner Wakaba, which is very important, the one on e-mobility.
Yes.
I think that's the future. And what Mr. Wakaba and his team at the organization that he works for are doing is quite important. And they're also doing sensitization for specific designation of charging facilities. And he's doing, of course, should he find an opportunity, I believe he has a lot to say about integrating electric mobility in our cities, and that should probably be well elaborated in the code and in the other planning handbooks. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing, and we thank you, Planner, for that.
Mine was about what are we doing at Vihiga with the personnel. Right, when we realize about the shortages of personnel, we have already recruited enough personnel.
Okay.
And therefore we are set as a county, but I don't know with the other counties how they are. But thank again, we held a seminar, a workshop with the NCA in Vihiga, and we've been sensitizing our people on this code. And I wanted to tell the legal officer that it is still a public participation, and wherever we go, we are also making aware to the members on the building code, on the benefits, and how it is going to improve their livelihoods in terms of development. And then the challenges of approval, as I said, now we have gotten rid of it because we have enough personnel, and therefore once we are presented with any request, we process them in time and give them to the people.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof, for that. Can we get the architect to make a comment before we come to the engineer?
One, the building code envisions a planned city, planned neighborhoods. So that's why the planner was a little bit agitated that we have gaps at that level. So when we talk about the issues of open spaces, the issues of public spaces, accesses, there's an envisioning that there's an access road to your plot. So the building code speaks to your plot and speaks to the spaces within, the setbacks, to your neighbors, to a road, the sizes of the road, and any open spaces. So we need to contextualize that. But I also want to say that I feel that there's a way in which the building code was also safe. And I will speak to the fact that what has been raised about e-mobility. Because for you to incentivize the future that we want, you must be bold right now. The building code still has a whole section on just parking. And most of it just speaks to the ideas of turning and the sizes and the numbers of, and I felt that that was an opportunity for us to now think really bold and start imagining what would it mean in the future where people could actually be parking in their sitting room and charging the cars right there, so that we are not even speaking about issues of fumes and all these, but we are talking about a car is like an appliance in your house. And these are some of the bold moves that we hope with that kind of engagement from such thoughts and how we want, it will evolve. And thank God we have a very short period before we renew. We are not going to wait for another, 68 to 2004?
Around 50.
50 years. We're not going to wait for 50 years. We are going to have a revised building code, very good chance before 2030. And I think we start now implementing this from practice, and I think we'll be good.
Thank you, architect. Engineer.
Number one, this is quite structural engineering, so I'm looking for a way to be fair.
Yes.
But let me say it this way, and she's also an engineer, so she knows what I'm saying. Number one, we have ultimate load method of design, permissible stress, and limit state. Building code, just like British standards, is a limit state design methodology, Eurocodes that is, as adopted by the building code. And so you will not find any difficulty in following through. In terms of the loadings, the research that came out with the Eurocodes was carried spanning 30 years or so. And so it was fairly rigorous. And the end product is quite a robust design. I have checked a design done with BS and checked with the Eurocodes, and I found an over-design from the BS. That tells you the question of economical design, and economical design is through Eurocodes. I can guarantee you for that because I'm practicing anyway, and that is an encounter. I no longer use British standards. I use Eurocodes to make sure I comply. And there are RCC spreadsheets, I can tell you. They are there. But more importantly, as an engineer, you want to have your mind there because, these softwares and computers and whatnot, it is basically junk in, junk out. So that your mind needs to be involved and you can critique whatever that comes out of that. And so I'll tell you that the Eurocodes, you may think that since the factor of the factor that you apply on the load is 1.5 instead of 1.6 or 1.35 instead of 1.4, you may think that you are actually going low. That is not the case. This is done out of very intensive research, and we give the load a factor, but also the materials a factor. And so I'm involved in this, and I can tell you we are on a safe zone. Now, on the last thing, Dr. as I finish, on the e-mobility question.
Yes.
We belabored that point when we were doing the building code, and thankfully we settled at that 5%. We must acknowledge this is evolving. I'm involved in a study in one of the bigger facilities now on looking at the feasibility of e-mobility and all the infrastructure that is required there and all manner of things. So the beauty is we inbuilt the concept of 5-year review for the building code so that we will be reviewing every 5 years. And so as this evolves, because even the policies have come out just a few last years ago about e-mobility, the policy directions and all that, and the guidelines and all that, we will continue to inbuild to the process as we involve, they evolve. Of course, there are all manner of things that will come out, so we have to keep on responding. And even the current infrastructure, it is not difficult to respond. That's why I said I'm involved in a study, checking what we can do to make one of the big facilities in this country adjust towards e-mobility. So we still can do that, even in the current infrastructure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish we had more time, but we have to reach to the end of this discussion. I have summarized 8 points for us. Number 1, the new building code is a transformative tool, not just a compliance document. Secondly, devolution is central to driving equitable development. We will need to embrace development at our devolution level of the counties. Number 3, urban resilience must be designed into infrastructure from the start. We are urbanizing at a very high rate. Therefore, we will need to embrace urban resilience and design it at the very start of the projects. Number 4, as the institutions here, we must lead in embedding sustainability and inclusivity in our designs. We have a lot of work to do as institutions. Then number 5, and this has been brought out from Madam Kananu, affordability and quality can coexist with the right incentives, and that has been provided for in the new building code. Number 7, we believe planning is very important to ensure spatial justice within our living environment. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, action is the next step. The conversation must not end here. Stakeholders from the national agencies to counter issues and the community leaders must turn the ideas and insights from this panel into real-world action points. That's our clarion call to the National Construction Authority. Action is our next step. Thank you so much, panelists. It was a wonderful session. Thank you, members. Can we clap for the panelists one more last time? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, QS Susan.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's appreciate our moderator for the panel discussion and all our panelists. That was quite an engaging and interesting session. So we've come to the end of it, and I want to appreciate all of us for the fruitful engagement. I want to thank PS, State Department of Public Works, Mr. Choela Romanyong in his absence, and also our Chair of the Board, Advocate Masi Okiro. I also want to appreciate our moderator for this afternoon session, Dr. Cyrus Ongondo. And I also want to appreciate all the 5 panelists who have been here. It has been engaging, and thank you so much. I know it has been a learning session for all of us. It is a good interaction. So already we have takeaways. I know as the authority and as a nation, we have so much to work on in this building code for this construction industry. I also want to appreciate the participants who are here. We have representatives from Busia County. Thank you so much for getting time to be here with us. We also have Kisii County, who are also here. We have Kiambu County. Thank you so much for being here. We also appreciate the presence of Kitui County, who are also in our midst. Thank you. We have also Homa Bay County. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We have also KPRC, represented by the director, Architect Oliver. Thank you for being here with us today. We also have a representative from Kenya Pipeline. Thank you so much for getting time to be here. We also have EPRA. Feel appreciated for being here with us. We also have Kipra for being here, EPRA and Kipra. We also have National Oil Corporation. Thank you so much. And we also have representative from State Department of Housing and Urban Development. Thank you also for being here with us. We have also the Land and Physical Planning Department. Thank you so much. Feel appreciated. We also have a representative from Kenya School of Government. Thank you so much. We have UN Women. Thank you for being here with us. We have also Kenya Law Reform Commission. Thank you for being here. And we have also BEF. Unfortunately, I do not know in full, but thank you for being in our midst. Thank you so much. Feel appreciated. We also have a keeper, Mashinani Trust. Thank you for being here with us. So I want to appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here with us. I know this is a continuous session. We are not going to end it here. We've already noted that in the building code, there is a provision of reviewing it every 5 years. So within our collaboration, we are expecting more feedback from all of us so that we can also improve on this. Otherwise, thank you so much. As authority, we will continue doing trainings and also sensitization, and we cannot do it alone, but we will do with all the one I've been able to list. And if I've missed out your institution or your organization, my apologies, but still feel appreciated. Thank you so much. I want us to end from here, but allow me to invite Steve Nyakondo, who is going to close for us with a word of prayer. And as for those who may be traveling, may you have journey mercies and be blessed.